Good afternoon, assalamu alaikum everyone, and welcome to my Campillos video, the final stint of our 30-hour race, and I thought I'd include it unedited and just so that you can enjoy and see what goes on in the 30-hour race. So you can see that I'm in the driver waiting area. There is a digiboard that shows all of the karts that are currently in the pits. We were in kart 37, so I'm waiting for that number to appear. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to head over and jump into the kart. Now, Campillos is really cool because essentially you get randomly allocated a new kart every stint. So those colors that you see on the board essentially tells us which queue to go in. So my numbers appeared, it is in the yellow column, or it's got the yellow bar next to it, and you can see on the left there's all of these colors. So I go into the yellow column, but because we constantly change karts, sometimes our kart has already been used. So this was a kart that I had actually already been in, or my teammates had been in early in this race. So as a result, I get moved out of that queue and into a different queue. So I put my lead ballast in, and I am then going to jump into the kart. Now, one of the big tricks is you want to pull your seat all the way forward, because apparently this makes you go faster. There's less weight on the rear axle, which helps the kart to rotate a little bit. And as you can see, my knees are rather bent, which means that I did get a little bit of a leg cramp during the stint, but hey, if it makes you go a tenth a lap quicker, you do it. Now, the only thing that's left is you drive up to this scanner point and you scan your wristband, which allows the system to know that you are the driver heading out of the pits. And now you're ready to take to the circuit. The only thing that is left is to wait, because every pit has to be a minimum time of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And as you will see in a moment, on the right hand side of your screen, if we just do a little cheeky zoom in, you can see there's a timer. Now, I don't want to go at 2 minutes 30 because the timing line is a little bit later. So I know that I have to go at 2 minutes and 25 seconds, and that will get me to the line at just about 2:30, 2:31. Play it safe, don't want to run the risk of a penalty, and out on to circuit we go. Send it as hard as we can through the pit exit and on to the circuit. Now, I'm going to commentate over the first kind of 10 minutes of this stint, or 10-15 minutes of this stint, and then what we're going to do is I'm just going to let you guys enjoy the sounds and, I don't know, engine sounds, all of that, and not have to listen to my voice, and I'll pop in every now and then when something interesting does happen. I just want to give it a quick overview of what this circuit is really like, because this anti-clockwise layout, I definitely preferred it to the clockwise. It was a little bit more challenging. There was a bit more stuff to do. So you've got this right-hander where you head up the hill. It's quite difficult because it's one of the slowest corners on the circuit, and you need to keep the minimum speed up, and that's the main thing that we noticed. So these are Sodi RT10 karts. They are 4 strokes, but you need to make sure that you carry that minimum speed, because otherwise you're just going to bog down. You're not going to be able to get up the hill. And this left-hander I really liked, and I get it okay there, but then it was through this right-hander that I could never seem to get the exit. No matter what I did, I always just didn't come out of that corner very fast. And you'll see that no matter who I'm coming up to, who I'm trying to lap, I never come out of that corner as fast as I arguably should have, considering my pace on other parts of the track. Probably my best corner was this corner right here. Use a curb on the right, on the brakes, use a bit of the curb through the left, and then a little bit on the curb through the right. But it's all about getting on the power as early as possible. And if you keep an eye on where my feet are, how much throttle I'm applying, you'll see that I'm trying to get onto the power well before the apex, just to carry as much speed through the corner as I possibly can. So yeah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go silent for a bit as we are catching up to one of our first few people to overtake or lap. I will just give, you know, the standard stuff. Make sure to like and subscribe this video. I'm going to post a stint of the clockwise layout. I'm going to put out a vlog of the whole weekend, so there's plenty of footage to come from Campillos, and there's also going to be a few shorts and all of that nonsense. So we'll be back in just a little bit. So voiceover is back, and there's a reason for that. You can see that I'm getting my head down as per usual, trying to use as much of the circuit on the entry into this opening sequence of corners, but then someone's going to come flying up my inside, and that is the pole sitter, the race leaders, and a 4-time kart world champion, John Del Valle. So this was my opportunity to try to work with a really quick driver and gain more time, because this circuit is all about slipstreaming, or this event is all about slipstreaming. So in my head at this point I was just thinking, right, I need to absolutely make sure that I can stick to the back of this guy. At the time I didn't realize that he was a race leader. I knew that he was one of the very quick drivers, but I didn't know much more than that, and you'll see just how effective the slipstream can be. I've not really got a good exit out of that corner, but as we make our way up the hill, you can see that I'm bringing that gap down, and this left-hander was so tricky because it's flat out if you get it right, but if you get it a little bit wrong, you have to lift and then you lose a bunch of time. So here you're going to see that I just lose so much. Actually, to be fair, I didn't lose that much that time around, but now you're going to see the slipstream come into effect. Once we get to our high speed and we stop kind of going downhill, just watch this closing speed on the straight. This isn't, you know, my car's better than his or anything like that. This is all down to just how much slipstream there is on the circuit. But it's a good run through the first few corners. That left-hander I wasn't quite getting right. You can see that maybe I turned in a bit too early, a bit too aggressively, and that cost me a bit of time coming out of the corner. I did feel relatively okay through this double left-hander, but you'll see that I take a slightly different line. I tried to take some of that curb, and I think that was unsettling the kart, whereas the driver in front of me, he avoided that curb, let the kart out more. But through the right-hander that we just went through, I definitely gained a little bit of time, and I get this right-hander really nice on this lap, just very smooth. And I think that's one of the big things about this circuit and these karts. It's all about being smooth. Sometimes you feel like you're slow, but you're actually going faster, and we didn't have any data loggers or anything like that for this event, so it was actually quite difficult to work out when we were being quick and when we were being slow. I'm trying to take that wide line in just so that I can open up this right-hander a bit more and gain more from the toe heading all the way down the hill. So on this lap I was actually able to keep up with this guy, and if anything catch him a bit, which is down to slipstream. It's not down to me being faster, because, you know, the toe's probably worth maybe nearly half a second, and I've gained, what, 2, maybe 3/10 on him on this lap. But unfortunately, I don't have the consistency, and that's where I'm lacking. Like, through there, I don't get on the curb, I end up taking a wider line, miss the apex. It's such a fine line to be fast in these Sodi karts, and if you just push that tiny bit too much, all of a sudden, you just lose time, and you're trying to push as much as you can without crossing that line, and I crossed that line. However, that time, through that double left-hander, I took the apex curb, and it worked out fairly well. But yeah, it's one of those that I couldn't tell what was the best way to go around the circuit. You know, what was the best line through some corners. However, you know, being able to put in a few laps behind John kind of allowed me just to gain a bit more confidence maybe, and say, okay, right, I do actually have the pace. I am doing, you know, kind of right stuff as I go a little bit wide and go on to, what is it called, the geo block. But then I completely mess up the left-hander. That compromises me through the right, and I've lost loads of time, and now I'm no longer in the toe. So it's that simple, you know. If I hadn't made that mistake, I probably would have been able to close back in on this straight with the slipstream, but because I made the mistake, I'm too far back to get slipstream, and I've now lost the toe, which is very sad. So I'm trying to push as hard as I can through this sequence of corners to close back in, and to be fair, I get a really good run. I took those first couple of corners really nicely, but pushed too hard into the left, dropped a bit of time, and is as easy as that. As the guy in front had a kind of look behind and said, "Why are you all the way back there?" And I kind of waved my hand as if to say, "Yeah, sorry, I'm just not that good, mate." Unfortunately, maybe next year, who knows. But there's still a chance that I can stick in this slipstream really, and that's what I'm going for. I'm kind of hoping that he gets stuck behind these back markers at the wrong point so I can catch up to the back of him, and then I can get my toe back and have him drag me along. So I know that he's quicker than me, there's no doubt in my head about that, but I'm telling myself if I can hook it together, if I can get the toe, I can stick with him. And then I hit that curve, which I really didn't need to do, but again, I'm still just trying to get everything right. And now the guy in front of me is going to have a toe, I'm going to have a toe. Maybe I can close back in. I'm just kind of lying to myself at this point, telling myself that I can catch up. I can definitely 100% catch up. I've got a nice toe now on the start finish straight. That's going to allow me to get through, and I'm hoping that this guy's going to get held up behind the back marker, which he kind of does, but not as much as I would have liked, because he's going to be able to go up the inside. There's a bit of contact, which is making me happier, because I've been able to close in, and now I'm thinking, right, I need to be able to make this overtake as quickly as possible, because otherwise John's going to be able to pull away and I'm going to have no toe. But I just couldn't find the way through that double left-hander, and then this guy made a mistake. I tried to get the drive, but I moved to the inside instead of pushing him, and it's gone. If I'd gotten ahead of him by this point, maybe I would have been back within slipstream range, but because I didn't, I'm now too far behind, and it's going to take me a while to get past, and you can see that John has already gone. And I did find that when I had someone quick to follow, I was definitely gaining a bit more time. So here I was thinking, right, I'll go for the send into the hairpin, but I'm just too far back. I've got to back out of the move, despite I thought I kind of got on the power at the right time, but clearly I was going too slowly. So now I'm even further back than where I was. So it's just a sequence of mistakes. Being too impatient to get past to try to stick to the race leader cost me a bunch of time. But don't worry, we're going to get past this guy nonetheless. We'll probably do it into turn 3. Brake nice and late. You'll just see how much I catch. Again, I'm able to open up this corner so much more. I end up tapping his rear because I just close in that much. But we get through, but unfortunately the race leader is too far ahead. So I'm going to go quiet again until our next interesting point in about 10 minutes time. are back once again, and now I have found this Moldovan driver, and I kind of figured, right, this guy is fast enough that I can push him along. So the entire stint I was waiting and thinking, right, I need to find a driver that is slow enough that I can catch up to them, but quick enough that I'll gain time if I push them instead of overtaking them. And this was the guy for me, Mr. Stoller. Stoll? I don't know, how do you pronounce Moldovan names? So I'm going to try to run through how I was approaching pushing this guy, because I knew I was much quicker in certain places. He was trying to wave me through here, and I didn't want to go past. So he's going to look behind, and I'm going to push and say, go. And now you can see he puts his head down. He's like, right, okay, this guy is going to push me. So I'm going to work with him. So you can see that I'm trying to open up this corner, make sure I get good exits, because I knew I was quite good on the brakes, but when you've got a driver in front of you, a driver that you're trying to push, you obviously can't do it on the brakes. You've got to make sure you get good exits. So that's what I was trying to do. I was trying to focus on getting really nice exits out of every corner. And yes, I could have overtaken him, but I knew that if I overtook this guy, I would just end up going slower. So I'm biting, you know, the bullet, I'm biting my ego, and I'm saying, right, I'm going to work with this driver. And hopefully it might even make him go fast. I give him a little push. And one of the reasons why I'd push drivers there is, one, it's faster, but two, some drivers like to brake a bit early. By pushing them, they brake a bit later, so they actually messed up that corner. But it was overall good for us as a duo, because if they went through that sequence really well, they'd actually gap me, and then I can't push them down the hill. Whereas if they make that little mistake, I'm much closer to them and I can start pushing them earlier. So it was actually quicker for us to do that. And you can see that I'm opening up this corner. I can give him a nice push coming out of the corner. And it was all just trying to work out, where can I gain time? How do I gain time? And yeah, it's all on corner exits. And what you'll notice, I mean, I'm going to stop talking over this in a second and just let you guys enjoy watching this, is I'm always trying to make sure that I get a really good exit so that I can push him on pretty much every straight. And I think with the exception of this one straight, I was pretty much pushing him every straight, every single lap. And that was my target. It was, right, if I'm behind this guy, every single straight I need to push him. And if I don't push him every single straight, that means that I am making a mistake. I give a tiny lift through this left-hander because I didn't want to push him wide. Not because I'd minded if he went on the gravel and I overtook him, but because then I wouldn't have anyone to push. And I kind of figured that he was running around that top 10 spot, so I just kind of knew I wouldn't find anyone quicker than him. And if I did ever find anyone quicker than him, then I would work with that person. I'd then overtake this guy and then push the next guy along. So I'm going to go quiet once again and let you guys enjoy me pushing this driver along for, well, the next 25 minutes nearly of this stint. I'm sure I'll probably do a few dodgy things over the course of those 25 minutes, but I'm sure you'll all enjoy it nonetheless. now onto the final lap of the race. I've pushed this guy along for so long, and now because it's the last lap, I see how long's left on the timer. I think, right, it's going to be time for me to go for an overtake. I don't want to finish behind him. You know, working together time has ended, so I try to get a good run. Can I go up the inside here? Nope, we're going to sit behind. My plan was to work with this guy because I saw there was the T-side car up ahead, which is another British team, and I really wanted to overtake them. So I wanted to push this guy along and overtake Mr. British team at the end. So I'm still working with him, and now I think, right, I can go up the inside. Why is this the time to do it? Because now that I've overtaken him, I'm in range of getting tow from the driver ahead. So that was my plan. I get an okay run, but this guy really messes up the corner, and it means that I can't make the move. And I'm a bit annoyed because I'm thinking, yo, Mr. Moldova, why don't you push me? I pushed you for so long. The least you could do is push me now. But sadly not, and it means that we've lost loads of time, which was gutting because I needed that to work out. I sent it back up the inside. It's a little bit bargy, but we're through. And yeah, I'm annoyed because I could have been through. I could have caught up to T-side car, but sadly too little, too late. So we're going to round the final corner now, and then I realized the race has not yet ended. I then see the one finger being shown, which means we are on to the last lap, and I'm thinking, right, I've got a chance. Unfortunately, I don't get the first sequence of corners right. I am going to send it up the inside into this corner regardless, though. There's almost a bit of contact, but we make the move work. Little look over my shoulder. Now I see the T-side car up ahead. I'm thinking, right, this is going to have to be the most insane lap of my career. You can see the smoke flares have gone off in the distance. So that means that the race has now ended. You know, the Spanish colours going up in the southern Spanish sky, really, in the Andalusian sky. It was a very, very hot weekend as well. So I'm still gunning for it. It's the last lap of the race. This isn't for position, but you know, I'm gonna push to the very end. I'm not gonna back out. I got a little push as well on the straight, and I'm seeing those two up ahead. I'm thinking, you know what, maybe there's a chance, maybe there'll be a bit of contact, maybe I can gain the position. There is a bit of contact. I'm thinking, oh, I'm so in there. Can we make this work? Is a switchback though for the T-side driver. We're too far behind. Surely they're both kind of missed the apex heading down here. So many people didn't know the line to take down through that downhill section. I get the drive, and I'm going to think, can I win the slipstream battle to the line? I try to get my head down, but no, I'm not going to be able to do it in time. So that brings that session to an end. I give a little fist bump to Mr. Moldova for, you know, a very fun 25 to 30 minutes working together. And then I see a pig, so I go and give the pig a little head pat, and yeah, that brings this stint to a close. And then you can see that I'm going to move my seat all the way back, and my knees can stretch out. Honestly, my knees were so stiff by that point. I'm so glad I got to stretch them out. I'd done about 5 hours of racing within the space of about 8 hours. In the final 8-9 hours, I did about 5 hours on circuit. So yeah, my knees had gotten very stiff, but it was very, very fun. Thank you guys very much for watching. I'll upload some footage, my clockwise stint at some point over the next week, and of course the vlog from the whole weekend. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you've got any races coming up at Campillos, I hope you found that entertaining, or I hope you found this useful as well. But anyway, until the next time, adios, assalamu alaikum.